Keith Rustin, Gulf Power Company. What are some of the things we should know or be concerned about when mixing different manufacturers, different types of fabrics, and layering those products together? What's some things we need to know about?
Will's done a bunch of layered testing with me, so I'll let him handle that.
Thanks, Keith. There are, like you said, there's been an explosion of variety in both manufacturers and fabrics. While this was happening, we started getting pressure through consensus standards to look at providing increased protection for the wearers. So you've got not only a lot of new fabrics, but people developing fabrics that will give you higher arc ratings. A lot of people in the industry switched to these, in many cases, heavier products to reach the higher arc ratings. And that was a very easy thing to do. And then summer comes, and you're left with a heavyweight product that really introduces a lot of heat stress hazards. When people started going back to the well and trying a new way, they said, okay, how can I pair a lightweight shirt with another lightweight shirt in the field to get me the requirements that I need, but still let the guys work in relative comfort for most of the year. And so that's where layering came up. And in the middle of us marching down the road of providing lightweight products that we could add, A plus B equals C, we found out that the fabrics actually don't perform like we expected them to in the layering combinations. Hugh and I actually had one of the first ones. I think well, you had all of them, but I think I had one of the first when he gave me a score of a 7.9 calorie knit shirt with a 6 calorie woven shirt, and that woven shirt was from a competitor. And I had to provide this data to a utility, and he came back and said, okay, that equals 8.1. And so 7.9 plus 6 equals 8.1. And I said, you're kidding me. I was like, I can't say that. They're going to think that I tanked this test. I didn't tank this test. What have you done? And so, yeah. And at the same time, another utility had bought, 10,000 undershirts with the promise that A plus B would equal C. And at that time, they figured out that A plus B equaled almost C, but not quite.
Almost A.
Almost A. Okay. In any case, at this point, this is where the whole double hump thing came to pass, and I think everybody knows what that is. Basically, these garments, these fabrics from all these different manufacturers and mills, they need to be tested together, and you need to have certified data that shows how these products work. And that was a lot easier 3 years ago when there were less fabrics and less manufacturers. It's hard to do now, but it is something you can do very easily if you will go through a process. And that was what the article was about that I wrote, is how do you make sense of this much variety, and how can you get to a comfortable layering system that can give you the NESC data.
Yeah, and let me add to that. If you do have an opportunity, and remember that this doesn't apply to the industry, but NFPA 70E in the appendices has some very good information about combining and layering clothing and what works and what doesn't work. And they do point out that if you as an employer decide to layer in order to provide a certain amount of protection, you do have to have testing done to ensure or establish what that layering is. A lot of the manufacturers have already done that testing for certain combinations that are theirs. So if you, let's say that you went to Riverside and you started to decide to layer a system and they gave you information from their certified testing, you can't then go out and buy an undershirt from somebody else and put it together and say that you've done the same thing. Because even though OSHA will recognize you're using their data as not your own data, they won't let you go out there and make those changes to that, at the same time. So that is the issue about layering of clothes. So and it doesn't add up. You can't take a 9-calorie shirt and a 12-calorie shirt and figure out that you've got 21 calories of protection. And because if you look at one of the examples where testing was done in 70E, you'll find out that it actually came up to about 30 calories of protection because of the air gap and the material layers.
I'm going to stop you on the air gap because air gap has nothing to do with it and does not work. And I've seen too many articles out
It's
there.
inconsistent. Yeah.
No, it doesn't work at all. Has nothing to do with an air gap. It's about ablation. It's about taking the outer shell and blowing it away and taking away energy. And I've read several articles on the air gap adds 1.5 or it adds this or it adds that. It has nothing to do with an air gap. It's not an air gap. Air gap cannot stop plasma. It doesn't slow it down, doesn't have anything to do with it. We've believed that it was air gap, or quite a few people have believed it's air gap. It's actually ablation effect of an outer shell. If you have an outer shell that begins to blow away earlier, that's helpful. So in other words, putting a lighter fabric over top of a heavier fabric will help you. If you put a heavier fabric over top of a lighter fabric, it'll almost always hurt you because it will hold the energy in, it won't blow away as easily, and you'll get the steam burns as the cotton or whatever material you're using begins to break down in the cellulose or whatever it is that's breaking down. So you have to be careful about putting together layers. Generally speaking, if you put same weight layers, the exact same materials on top of one another, generally speaking, they will do better, sometimes 2 to 4 times better than a single layer. But if you start putting too heavy things on top of light things, that generally is what causes your problems. Second thing on this layering issue is, on my website, if any utility tests a layer of 2 different brands, and they pay for the testing, I give that data to the whole industry. It's on the website. I've got 20 new ratings that are coming on there real soon from Seattle City Light. PG&E's done some testing. Seattle City Light's done some testing. And one other utility did about 2 layers. But we now have about 25 ratings of mixing brands. We're making that available to any utility. So if your utility says, hey, you know what, we've got these 2 ones that we didn't buy. Say if you buy them both from Riverside, he may already have the testing for you. If you buy them both from Westex or from different companies, they may already have the testing. But if you're starting to mix brands, if you do that, we're going to make that available to the whole industry if you want it to be. If you don't want it to be, we won't. But if you will do that, we'll make that available to everybody so nobody's having to test something twice. It's a waste of money and time, and we want to make the industry available for those multi-layer system ratings.
I guess I'm going to have to stop just throwing away articles that's got his name on it because sometimes I just don't even read them.